Welcome to the dumbest smart guy podcast on the planet. This is the Central Unintelligence Podcast. Do we have a fucking show today? Man, some very interesting things have happened, not just here at home, but locally to us here in Southern California over the last couple of days. But before we get to that, as always, I'm Josh. I'm here today with Adam.
Hello.
Oh yeah, sorry, I need to touch the conch prior to speaking. Before we get into it, don't forget to go to GameRageMagazine.com to view all of our multitude of podcasts for your listening pleasure, such as All Gas, No Trash, the music podcast. Hey, do you like anime? I'll bet you do. You go listen to the Anime Syndicate podcast. Furthermore, do you like sports? Oh, guess what? Because we also have a new sports podcast that just came out called Chirpin' from the Pine, CFTP. Dropping it like it's hot, 5 episodes, waiting for your auditory pleasure. Also, everybody loves movies, right? And television shows. We have the Game Rage Movies and TV podcast talking about all kinds of good stuff. We're currently reviewing X-Men 97 along with the Fallout series. If you like pro wrestling, and who doesn't, we have the Game Rage Wrestling podcast. Also, Panel to Panel if you enjoy comics, Team Killing Glitch Tarts for video games, and the heavy hitter of heavy hitters, Without Censor, the Game Rage Interview Podcast. And man, those are some good episodes on there. You're really doing yourself a disservice if you don't go and listen.
Some good ass podcasting.
We should get a shirt. Some good ass podcasting. But anyways, you can go there and you can find all those podcasts and more at GameRageMagazine.com, along with, or also available wherever podcasts are sold. All right, so that's a cheap plug out of the way. Now, we have a little few things to talk about. Now listen, just like with the last episode, I'm going to first give a disclaimer, okay? Prior to getting into the subject matter, because whether you are in favor, against, or which side you're on, everyone's got an opinion about this. And I will just say, we are not picking a side on the issues that we're going to be discussing. We're not pro one side. We're not anti the other side. We're not doing anything like that. But we are going to discuss the things that are happening, and we're going to, maybe discuss our opinions of what they potentially mean, and also potentially what the outcome or the consequences of these things could be. But we are, again, not choosing a side in this matter. So now that that's out of the way, also much like the last episode, I feel like this is only going to be 15 or 20 minutes and just whatever. Last time, that's what I said, and we ended up getting over an hour, but whatever. I don't know. This is probably going to be a short one. So just, heads up.
I'm not entirely sure where you're going to go with this one. I know vaguely about one topic, and I'm debating about how much I want to participate in this, because I'm already getting heated about this subject internally, because what it ends up doing to people.
Yeah.
To have people pitted against one another, or put against one another. And I feel as though there's more there's more perspectives to take in to see the bigger picture, but it ends up resulting that everybody puts themselves in two camps, literally and metaphorically, much like the elections where everybody votes Democrat or Republican. And that's the dichotomy that we live in, is that everything has to be on two sides and you have to pick one or you're wrong. And I posit that there's more to be said and there's more to take in.
I agree with that. And I will say this before we get to the problem or the issue. Here's the solution. This is why I'm in favor of some sort of alien invasion or some sort of extraterrestrial threat, because to me, that's the one thing that's going to bring us all together, man. And I know I've probably said that before, but I fully, truly believe that. It's not going to matter if you're white, black, yellow, green, orange, purple, what God you fucking pray to. And none of that's going to matter when we're literally fighting an enemy that looks nothing like us or looks nothing like anything we could have possibly imagined. Everyone will come together. And this is why we need the Helldivers mentality. All right. We need to apply that to our modern life. Everybody just high-fiving for killing those fucking bugs. All right. Killing those disgusting alien menaces, and everyone high-fiving, and any human is pro-human, right? And we would stop killing each other immediately. Yeah,
I dare say that the third party would be a very real third option, which is robots and artificial intelligence. Maybe not in our lifetime, but potentially in the future.
Yeah, and we should kill them too. I am only pro-human at this point, all right? I don't give a shit what other aliens exist. Nope, they need to die. All right? I am the true definition of xenophobic of extraterrestrials. I hate them, all right? I don't like any of them, and they all need to die. Only humans should reign supreme. All humanity reigns supreme over the galaxy. That's what I say.
My favorite thing is that we just did an episode of the X-Men talking about intolerance. Dude, are you gonna start the Friends of Humanity?
I was gonna tell you, I was literally gonna tell you in that episode, if we ever start a rebellion group, it's gonna be called the Friends of whatever it is we're like in favor of. So like that would be the perfect name for my extremist group of killing aliens, the Friends of Humanity, or the Human Love League, or so the League of Humans. I don't know, whatever the fuck, something pro-human related. But Friends of Humanity is, I'm stealing that. I'm sorry, Marvel, but I'm stealing that shit. When the alien menace comes to town, you're gonna see FOL spray painted on shit. That's gonna be the NWO. That's gonna be my version of the NWO, FOH, the Friends of Humanity. That's what it's gonna be. Because fuck them aliens, all right? The theoretical aliens. And I know I'm going to probably catch shit from you fucking alien apologists on the internet, but you can all go fuck yourself. And you're a traitor to your fucking race of humanity. And you deserve nothing but the stockades. Get out of here.
Sapiens.
Yeah, sapiens. Sapiens for life, all right? So now that we got some comedy mixed in here to lighten the mood, let's get into the fucking depths of despair with this whole fucking issue. So obviously over the last couple of days, week or so, we've had these big protests, right? And we talked about it on the last episode about these anti-Israel protests at the colleges. And there have been anti-Israel and then there have been pro-Israel protests. The anti-Israel side, or I guess really it's more of pro-Palestinians, probably the correct term to use. They have taken the what was that thing during the Chaz over there, the Freedom Zone or whatever the fuck it was called, that they used to have in like Seattle or whatever. They've been taking that mentality and they've been liberating sections of colleges, and they've been putting up these tent cities, and they've been living there, and they've been having all this kind of intricate shit going on, and most of them have just been getting routed by the police. They've just been getting taken down and destroyed, and basically just everybody sent packing. Well, locally to us here in Southern California, at UCLA in particular, they had a pretty decent sized encampment set up, and on, I believe it was Monday night, they started to get a little rowdy. And I will say this, I watched it all on live streams. I wasn't there, okay, but I watched it all on live streams from multiple angles. The news, ironically, I still don't understand this, how the news didn't pick this story up until well into the night. And ABC7 was the only news station that was covering this and had a helicopter in the air that was covering it. And what I thought was also a little strange was how basically every 20 minutes they had to go refuel. They had to leave to go refuel. It was very strange because those helicopters cover car chases for hours on end. But yet, for some reason, when they were covering this thing, Oh, every 20 minutes, oh, we got to go. And it could have been because it was getting hyper violent and they were like, oh, we don't know what we can be showing on television. Like if someone dies on live television, we're probably going to be held accountable for this.
I will counter that and say that it would be a missed opportunity for a news station to miss out on that because as the old saying goes, if it bleeds, it leads.
That is true, but I feel like this issue has caused I don't know what the word is, maybe a reevaluation of what the news stations want to cover. Because like I said, it hasn't been getting a shit ton of play. I mean, now it has because of what's happened, I think, at UCLA. But basically, back to the story at hand. On Monday night, there were two sides. There was a pro-Palestine and a pro-Israel side. All right. And both had setups. The pro-Palestine side had the encampment. The pro-Israel side had this fucking giant blow-up television screen. And they were... This is some of the most ingenious shit I've ever seen in my life. And this is really interesting to me just on a micro level. The ingenuity that us as humans have and our adaptability is fucking second to none. This is why we're the top species on this planet.
Sapiens.
You know what? We need a soundbite. Sapiens. That's why we're the top species, because we can adapt to any situation and survive and overcome. And so this protest, the pro-Israel side had this giant screen and they were basically just spamming video of the October 7th attacks. It was all just fucking terrorists shooting fucking people, beheading and all kinds of crazy shit, right? They were showing this. Then to counter that, the pro-Palestinian side, because they didn't have no technology, they didn't have no screens, they couldn't do shit. So what they started doing was they were projecting onto like the other side of the screen. They were just projecting and showing videos of like kids just being dead, and they were playing cries of like babies crying, like dying and shit. It was some morbid fucking shit. And they were slowly escalating each other until eventually it started to get out of hand. And basically the pro-Palestinian side decided, hey, there's quite a few of these pro-Israel people that are against us, so we probably should start barricading ourselves. So that's what they did. They took some barricades. They started fucking setting them up. I don't know where the fuck they were getting pallets from, but they were just getting pallets and just straight plywood, just getting it from who the fuck knows where. And they were just barricading themselves, a giant barricade in between them and the other protesters. So the other protesters thought that was bullshit because, you know, they were like, hey, we want to yell at you guys and we can't yell at you effectively if there's a fucking barrier. So we're going to start tearing this shit down. So they try to start tearing shit down. And then that's when the spiciness started happening. People started fucking fighting. There were little skirmishes. The most interesting thing to me was that the protesters brought umbrellas, like those, you know, like beach umbrellas, to block pepper spray and the, you know, shit like that from the police, right? And what was funny is they were stripping off the connections and the actual umbrella part and just keeping the stick. And they would take the stick and they would take some kind of plastic and they were making these shields and these sticks. They were literally doing like phalanx style warfare. Like they were taking Roman warfare to the next level, and they were just beating the fucking shit out of each other with umbrella poles. Literally, I thought I was watching backyard wrestling. Like, I think I saw a dude with a fucking like one of those halogen lights and just smash it over somebody's head. It was pretty crazy. And there was a shit ton of that happening, and it was all being covered live. And the best part is when they called the police to come do something about it. Now, UCLA has its own police department. The California UC system has its own police department that works at every UC that exists, right? And so they're usually very small departments. There's probably only like maybe 5 to 10 officers working per shift. So there's this major fight between 1,000 people essentially happening. What's 6 dudes gonna do? Probably not much. So the funniest thing was that people were saying that they were calling 911 to have the police come out and stop all this fighting, and they were just hanging up on them. They were just saying, we can't help you. Click, hang it up. LAPD was getting called because the university decided that they weren't going to do anything about it. So the funniest shit was watching the Channel 7 helicopter show 6 university police cars driving lights and sirens down the street, going right up to the thing where the protesters are, looking at them, still in the cars, and essentially going, yeah, we ain't going there, and making a left turn and just hiding off somewhere else. They went into some parking garage and they just fucking hid and did nothing. And so then maybe an hour or two later, like 5 LAPD cars showed up at the local Chick-fil-A that's down the street, and they were all sitting outside the Chick-fil-A just waiting, standing there doing nothing. And eventually, after about 4 hours of this going on in this constant, dude, man, it was getting intense. One of the ingenious things that they were doing was they had taken a bunch of fire extinguishers from who knows where, and the pro-Palestine side was spraying down the people that were the pro-Israel side, and they were just fucking launching tons of I don't know, whatever it's called, the shit that's inside of a fire extinguishing liquid, I don't know, powder, whatever the fuck it is. And there were people just getting blasted with that shit. And it's a chemical, so it does not feel good when it gets on you. It kind of burns a little bit, and it gets in your eyes and your mouth and shit. Like, it's just bad all the way around. So people were getting blasted with that. They were literally beating each other with umbrella sticks. And eventually the police show up. The highway patrol shows up with whatever, a busload of dudes. LAPD comes in with another busload of dudes, and they eventually restore order to the point where now they've just gotten all of the fights separated, and that's kind of where it was at. And then they kind of just left. So then going into the next night, which was, I'm sorry, this must have been Tuesday night, because then it was Wednesday night when they said, all right, we gotta do something about it. We gotta take care of this. We gotta get rid of this encampment. So they say, we're gonna go in and we're gonna get rid of these people. So they start kind of setting up, and there were a shit ton of people there, man. I would say probably 2,000 to 3,000 people at this thing, and they've got maybe a couple hundred, cops doing this, right? So one of the things that was fucking interesting to watch was the protesters had the main encampment, and they basically had all entryways blocked off to get into the encampment, with the exception of one little area, which I will refer to as the hot gates. And if anybody's seen 300, that's how the whole story of Thermopylae goes. Is 300 guys took on a 50,000 Persian army and held them off for days, because they were funneling them into this tiny little area, and they were able to just keep killing them. And it didn't matter how many guys you sent. If you can only send 10 guys wide, well, we have 300, so we'll just keep killing your guys. You can only get 10 at a time, right? So that's kind of how this was set up. So then they went further down from the camp, and they had done these little barricades. They did 3 barriers here, a barrier here, and a barrier in the front. So the cops broke through one of the barriers. They just snuck in. It was pretty ingenious to see, because I guess in the area there's a lot of underground parking structures and a lot of underground connections to get people from place to place. So they went into one little underground structure, and they ended up coming out right up in this fucking area, and they were able to come in, boop, swoop in. They sent like 40 dudes in there. And so they were getting ready to go move through this first barricade to get to the actual camp. And the people that were there, the protesters, were like, no, we're not having any of this. So they all started gathering around, and they had probably, man, I'd say 700 to 1,000 protesters right there at this little line. And then, sorry, go ahead.
Was this the pro-Palestine side,
yes,
or the other side?
This was the pro-Palestine side. The pro-Israel side had basically left at this point. They kind of just got out of there and didn't really come back, it seemed like, for the most part.
So they had a giant screen, showing all this. How did they even manage to get a fucking, I don't know. You know what the real statement to be made here is? Evolution is a mystery.
True story. It really is. It's a fucking actual mystery. Because I have no idea how they got any of this shit going. Like this is insane. It just popped up out of nowhere. That's the crazy part. It popped up out of fucking nowhere. And so the crowd, the pro-Palestine crowd starts surrounding the cops, and they're literally looking at each other like they're about to shit themselves. They're like, oh man, there's a lot more people here than we fucking thought, and there's a lot less of us.
Oh no, I
thought you were going to talk. So anyways, so essentially they end up saying, okay, this situation is untenable because people are starting to get really pissed at the cops. So the cops say, we got to get out of here. So they're like, well, we're going to retreat. So as they're retreating, the protest group is like following them, and they start fucking getting encircled, and the cops end up getting in themselves. They run into one of the other barricades, and there's another line of people there, and they're not letting them through. So now they're trapped. So the cops are like, hey, we got to do something about this. So they start trying to push through the people. Well, they start getting into little scuffles and little skirmishes with people. They eventually break through, and there's one guy that starts punching on one of the cops, and they fucking grab him, snatch him up, and they move back out. So the protest group says, nah, fuck that. We want our guy back. So they follow the cops all the way to this little area that they retreated to, and the cops have the guy handcuffed, and they're going through his shit or whatever, and they're like, whatever. And so the protesters start getting crazy. They start throwing shit at the cops. And so the cops say, hey, fuck it. We gotta bounce out of here, I guess. So instead of taking the guy that you arrested and showing your force, what do? They unhandcuff the guy and literally kick him to the curb, and they run. The cops, the fucking police run at full speed away, post haste from this fucking crowd. And I literally was texting you as this was happening, and I said, man, whoever is in charge of this fucking shit is going to be committing seppuku by the end of fucking sundown by today, because they are fucked. I can't believe they allowed that to happen. And one of the things that I've noticed is this is kind of different. This whole thing is different from the 2020 protesting that went on. The police were very proactive in that, and they were going in and shutting shit down and getting crazy once shit started popping off, and they weren't taking shit from anybody. They were just going after them. This time around, this one's particularly here at UCLA, the protesters held off the police for a very long time, because a couple hours later, the police decided, okay, we need to shut this shit down. So they go in and they're going to break in. Sorry, go ahead.
I think I heard a quote from one of the police officers that said, unjustifiably put in a position I'd rather not be in. No, nobody's gonna get that. Oh, unless you were listening to Game Rage, the wrestling podcast, you might know that's Macho Man. But yeah. Anyways, continue.
Anyways, so
that fell flat.
It's all right. I laughed. I thought that was funny. So essentially, they start making this other line down at the bottom where the main encampment is, and they're going to start breaking through this barricade. They get in there, but then they send their main force of guys up into this hot gates area where all of the protesters that were just at that bottom part that successfully repelled the police all moved to, because you showed the bulk of your force going there. So sure, could have been a little bit of a feint to get them up there so that they could then come in from the bottom and start dismantling the thing. Now, that would have been all fine and dandy if they would have been effectively dismantling the thing. But the protesters were literally holding them off for a couple of hours. It took them probably 3.5, 4 hours to fully go in and clear out that little small encampment, because people were just not letting them in and were fighting back against them. And it really made the fucking police look weak. Like, they are not essentially capable of fucking doing this shit anymore, it seems like. And I don't know if it's because they didn't really want to get involved. Like I kind of said on the last episode, I do believe that this is going to turn into a summer protest season or whatever you want to call it. And I think that as these things are getting more intense, I think the police are just going to say, hey, you know what? We don't want to fucking deal with this shit anymore. So call in the National Guard and let them deal with it. And like I said, I think that's when you have the potential to see one of these, as they called it in that Civil War movie, the Antifa massacre or whatever. And that's eventually what it's probably going to lead to. And the fact that this little area was essentially an anarchy zone, which, listen, again, I don't want to talk personal politics or any shit like that on here. But the fact that this was allowed to exist, whether you agree with the fact that the police should be doing anything or not, is relevant, because it just shows that the police were not effective in their response to this at all. At all. They fucking dropped the ball big time. Like, someone's going to get fired over this for sure. And this was not just a failure on the local university police. It was a failure on the whole system as a whole, because the highway patrol was there. They bust in all these dudes from north and south. They bust in all these guys from LAPD, and it just failed all the way around. Yes, in the end, they eventually completed the objective of clearing out the camp, and now it essentially looks like nothing happened. Like, which is what I think the narrative is going to be going forward for these universities, is they're going to clear out these encampments and then just pretend like, what encampment? We didn't see any. I don't see any encampment there. Do you? There was never an encampment here. That's kind of where I think this is going. And it's because it's such a divisive issue between pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli, right? And essentially what the protesters are asking for is for the universities to divest from defense industry and any pro-Israeli businesses or individuals, as it were. And when it comes to their money, they don't want you fucking with their money. The universities will let you have free speech and do whatever you want until it starts fucking with their money. And once you try to fuck with the money, they're going to drop the hammer on your ass, which is why we're seeing, I mean, we saw the 2020 protests at colleges and stuff, and they didn't say shit. They were saying nothing about any of that. They were like, yes, please protest, and we want you to have freedom of speech and all this shit. But now when someone takes an opinion that's potentially going to affect their money, they say, oh, no, you can't have that opinion. That's not an opinion you're allowed to have. So if you have that opinion, you're going to be expelled from this college. You're going to be suspended. You're not going to be allowed to graduate. All this shit that they're popping down on them. Go ahead.
If I'm not mistaken, and I hope I'm corrected on this, but I did see a banner that said that the faculty and instructors were in favor of the students protesting pro-Palestine.
You are correct in that. There was a banner that was faculty and supporters. There's some shit like that, it said. And there were some people that were getting talked to by the news that were faculty members that were there. And so it's not, and that's the other thing is universities in general like to play both sides of it. They like to say that they're a bastion of free speech, and that's kind of what the liberal agenda is, right? The left-leaning thing, which I'm in favor of that. I think free speech is great. I think everybody should be allowed to say what the fuck they want to say. And they love playing that card. But then, like I said, once it's going to affect their money, oh, hey, man, you can't say any of that shit. You better keep your mouth shut. And if you say, like, COVID was a good example of that. Anyone at these universities who was speaking out against maybe getting the shots right, what happened? Oh, fired, terminated. You can't fucking say that. You need to take the shot and just, that's it. You need to do this. Same thing goes kind of with this issue is at a lot of these universities, they are, I mean, UCLA gets quite a bit of money. I was trying to find their disclosures because generally, because they're a public institution, they have to say where they're getting their money from and all that stuff. And so there's nothing that has a overall of like what the university as a whole receives, but you can see like what individual branches of the college, some of them that have it publicly easily available. And like their engineering college, they receive a lot of money from Boeing, from Raytheon, from fucking all the defense contractors, right? And again, the colleges want that money. They almost need that money. So I don't think there's any realistic expectation that they're going to turn that money down on principle, because if they don't have that money, then they can't continue operating as they want or can't pay their salaries. As the people in the decision-making roles, they want to continue getting raises, and they can't do that if they're now taking in less money because they decided to take the moral high ground and say, okay, well, we're not going to take money from anyone who is supporting of warfare in general, right? And really, colleges probably shouldn't be taking money from Boeing, and well, maybe not their military division. If you want to take it from the engineering division of Boeing, from their aeronautics or whatever, maybe not their military division, but yeah, maybe colleges, if they have this stance of being anti-war, whatever you want to call it, well, they probably shouldn't be taking the money because that's hypocritical, right? And now that they're being forced into this position to acknowledge, hey, this is a temple of education, right? Where free speech is heralded, it's applauded, it's rewarded. But in this issue, it's being stifled, and it's being said, hey, you cannot talk about these things or do these things because of the perception of what it is that they mean. Good.
Tangentially but congruently related, the thing that you mentioned before about Netanyahu holding a press conference about U.S. colleges having students that align with the pro-Palestinian rhetoric and protesting in favor of Palestine. And to me, that was bothersome to me when he said those type of things. This is just my personal opinion, by the way. I know this isn't fact or whatever, but it does bother me that this person from another country is saying that if you say anything against Israel, or if you're against the Israel rhetoric, that this is anti-Semitism outright, like pigeonholing anything that isn't pro-Palestine, or rather pro-Israel, it is anti-Semitism. And I'm just thinking, well, we do live in a country where you have the right to speak your own mind and all that stuff. So by you saying that you can't even entertain the other side, I don't know, man. That ain't what America's about, dude. America is entertaining all perspectives, all walks of life, all that shit. So it just feels like he's trying to indoctrinate, potentially the history books, the literature, to say that Israel is worth saving for as long as the U.S. exists. We have to align on all things, or it's anti-Semitism. And that just outright bothers me.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And one of the things that, again, I just want to clarify here, there's no sides being chosen in this argument, right? These are just our opinions on the matter, and really also the facts. And one of the things that my opinion of why this thing gets broiled, it's so hard for people to get around, is Zionism, right? That's the one thing everybody's a Zionist and the anti-Zionists, right? Or it's Zionists versus anti-Semitics. That's what the argument has now kind of turned into. And one of the things that people don't necessarily understand is that literally Zionism is how Israel is kind of run. And the definition of Zionism is a movement for the establishment and the development and protection of a Jewish nation. Okay, that's what Zionism is they want to have a nation that is all about its religion, right? And so here in America, the words separation of church and state do not exist in the Constitution. And a lot of people get that confused, saying, "Oh, we have the right. It's written in our thing." That's not true. We do not have the words written. It's often confused as something that Thomas Jefferson said. He discussed the need for the separation of church and state. And one of the things that we have that enshrined that into our Constitution is the First Amendment, which also it's about the freedom of speech, press, and religion. And one of the little things in there it says about the religion part is that there shall be no establishment of a state religion, meaning that no religion shall have a sole factor in talking about governance of the country, in being that no religion shall have its own say in the operation or the running of the country itself. And this is where we have the two completely different ideologies, where here in America, we do not have a state religion that is abided by everyone, right? We have the freedom to have whatever religion you want to believe in. And in Israel, they have a state religion. The state religion is Judaism. The whole state is essentially founded upon the principles of and in the protectorate of Judaism. And people don't, that's where I think this anti-Semitism thing, if you're against Israel, you're looked at as an anti-Semite, because you can be against Israel but not hate Jews. That's a completely valid and appropriate thing, because I don't think any religion should control any state. And I don't know how it works in Judaism because I'm fucking ignorant. Let's just be honest. All right. I know a little bit about a lot of things, and I don't know if they have like a pope figure or a head guy in charge of Judaism. I don't think that really exists. I don't think that's a thing, but it's not like there's a guy that's saying, oh, hey, I'm the Pope of Judaism and I'm saying that Israel needs to do this. Like, that's not like, so I don't think you should be able to, I don't think that the comparison of the religion of Judaism runs Israel. It's not like that. And so that's where I think that the distinction needs to be made to the average person, because people don't necessarily understand that. And I think that's, again, people who are Jewish. Now, again, I'm not Jewish, so I'm ignorant, right? I don't know exactly everything about it. But what I'm saying is that the people who are Jewish are taking this as an attack against their religion. And
them as a culture and people, when it's not really about that. There's land that was occupied by a group of people, and another state was created, which was Israel after World War II. And obviously that has changed over the course of time, where the border has been continued to shrink down for Palestine. And I don't know if you can dispute that. Like, that is the fact of what's happened.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I don't mean to interrupt.
Oh, yeah. And just to add on to that, it's just, if I were to say that, I feel as though I would be considered anti-Semitic for stating what is in fact, that the borders have moved closer, or enclosing and eradicating the Palestinian people.
Correct. Yeah, correct. And we did an episode in the past. I forget what number it was, but you can go back and look in the notes of the episodes. And we did an episode discussing this whole Israel Palestine thing, probably back around October, November of last year. And we got really deep into the weeds of the history of that whole nation with the Ottoman Empire and World War I and all this shit that ended up contributing to the creation of the state of Israel. And it's history that a lot of people don't know. And if you want to listen, we won't rehash that here, but if you want to listen, you can go back and hear that. But that episode would likely be viewed today as an anti-Semitic episode, because we were discussing things that happened, and it doesn't paint Israel or whatever it is in a good light, because we talked about some of the things that they did that were they were committing acts of terror themselves to try to get what they wanted done, because the UN wasn't really having this whole conflict between the people who were in that zone or sector. Hold on a second. Let me pause this. All right. Fucking sorry about that. Jesus Christ. Chloe woke up and was crying, and I think she was having a nightmare, and she thought she was alone or something. or I don't know. She thought like Katie wasn't up there. So she was just running around. And then Katie's like, dude, I'm right here. What are you talking about? I don't see you. And she's like, I'm literally right here. It was kind of funny. And then she had to pee or something. So that's why she got up. But she immediately went back to just, like playful. And I'm like, you're a psychopath, child. Like, I don't know about this. This is a little weird. So anyways, back to what I was saying, which I fucking totally lost my train of thought. We were talking about, like being anti-Israel also
equates to anti-Semitism.
Right, which it doesn't. And this is one of the things that, to segue into this, there's this new thing that the Senate just passed, which was the what is it?
It was the House of Representatives.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It was the House of Representatives, and it was I believe it's called the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. And basically,
there it is. House of Representatives Bill 6090.
Yeah, this was it. And so where's the votes that they have on here? Don't they have like a thing where it tells you the votes? Because they did the vote on it. It passed like by a lot. But essentially what it's saying is that it's further this thing, and I'm not the only one who believes this. The ACLU also put out a statement saying that this is going to stifle free speech in our educational systems, and really that's what it's going to do. Is it allows the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights to take into consideration the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's working definition of anti-Semitism when reviewing or investigating complaints of discrimination based on race, color, or national origin in programs or activities that receive federal financial assistance. So, and then it says right here in the summary on congress.gov, according to the IHRA's working definition, anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred, right? That's a very broad definition. And so if you go to the IHRA website, which I had it up on one of these things. Oh, yeah. So their definition of what their working definition, right? This isn't even a set in stone definition. It's a working definition. It literally says that, okay, these are what they're calling their working definition includes, but is not limited to calling for, aiding, or justifying the killing or harming of Jews in the name of a radical ideology or an extremist view of religion. Okay, I could see that. Making mendacious, dehumanizing, demonizing, or stereotypical allegations about Jews as such, or the power of Jews as a collective, such as, especially but not exclusively, the myth about a world Jewish conspiracy or of Jews controlling the media, economy, government, or other societal institutions, right? So you can't even say anything about that anymore. Also, this one right here, this one really gets me. Accusing Jews as a people of being responsible for real or imagined wrongdoing committed by a single Jewish person or group, or even for acts committed by non-Jews, right? So even if, like, the state of Israel, for example, is doing something real, like, I don't know, killing children, bombing buildings and children are dying, even if they're doing that and it's real, in the education setting, you cannot criticize that whatsoever because you could potentially face repercussions.
That feels as though it's creating an exception for one specific group of people as opposed to the same set of rules applying to all groups of people here in the United States. And who the fuck knows how that affects the literature of history, where it may be taught in history books that, you know, everything that was done through Israel is justified.
Yeah. Which is, again, it's just completely, this thing is anti-American. It's not like our our country is turning into something that it's not. It's turning into I don't know what it's turning into. I don't know what it's called or what if there is even a name for it, but basically turning on the founding principles or the actual principles of the country itself and deciding who it applies to and who it doesn't apply to, instead of it just being blanket that, oh, all of these things, the free speech applies to everyone and everywhere. That's crazy to think about. It's kind of like I take the view, and I've said this before on this podcast about my view personally is I think that, like what George Carlin says, is it's either you have all the rights or you have none of the rights. And if any of your rights can be taken from you, then they truly were never rights at all. They were just privileges. And I think we're starting to see that what we are being told and have been told for hundreds of years is that our constitutional rights are not actually rights. They're just, in fact, privileges that can be revoked by the government at any time that they so choose and in any setting that they so choose. And the fact that congressmen overwhelmingly voted for this, or I should say representatives of the House overwhelmingly voted in favor of this to essentially take away free speech in the college setting, which colleges are, again, supposed to be bastions of free speech. They're supposed to allow free thinking. They're supposed to allow these things. And if you take that away, then you just create an echo chamber of the same bullshit over and over again. Go ahead.
Yeah. I think universities, colleges in general are supposed to create discourse for things that happen within the world we exist, right?
Yeah.
So that means that free speech has to be taken place there, or it has to exist there in order for independent thought, things to be scrutinized, so we could develop facts that can't, well, not to say they can't be disputed, but that we come to at a consensus. And if that is infringed upon, then what are we doing?
Yeah, exactly. And I would say that freedom of speech really needs to be a core tenet of these colleges. It needs to be a core principle of these organizations, of these educational organizations, as opposed to essentially the college just being an extension of the state's enforcement and the state's will, and the state deciding, well, we don't think you should be allowed to say these certain things, so you can't say these certain things here in colleges because we don't want it to be said, or whatever the case is. And I've always been I'd rather be in favor of more freedoms than less freedoms, right? And I am a First Amendment absolutist, and I think that's how it should be. We should have the freedom of speech to say what we want to say, and whatever you want to say, you should be allowed to say it. I don't really think that there should be restriction in any way on speech. Now, granted, if again, I've been criticized in the past about my opinion on this because people think that hate speech should not be allowed. Well, again, I'm in favor of more freedoms than less freedoms. Yes, you can say what you want to say, but the second you act on it to do something against another person because of that, then there's a problem, right? So sure, say what you want to say and have the free speech. Hell, that could lead to discord, to talk to people that you're hating on, essentially. And maybe that could open your eyes to see, oh, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I shouldn't hate these people for this reason. But if you stifle that free speech and make them have to go underground to fucking hide their hate speech or whatever it is, then that's just going to breed more hate and discontent, right? Instead of at least allowing the discourse to take place in the open. So yeah, I think this is bad all the way around. And again, the people who make these laws are legislators that we vote for. And this is why it's very important to exercise your power in voting. Because guess what? A majority of people put these people in these offices, right? And I think there were, I don't know, it was how many? There's like 500 and something, or 490 or some shit like that in the House of Representatives. And it was like 300, like an overwhelming majority of them voted in favor of this. And if I was one of their constituents, which I'm sure our Congress person voted in favor of this, and I would say that would be an immediate, hey, you're voting to take like rights away from people. I would be like, no, Dice, you got to go. You got to get out. And I don't know what the solution is, because at this point, it really feels to me like we're being ruled instead of governed at this point. And the principles of what our flag represents and what it represents 60 years ago or 70 years ago to what it represents now are two completely different things. Like, I don't think I mean, listen, I'll be honest. Maybe I shouldn't even say this, but like, I mean, I took our flag down today, man. Like, cause we hang an American flag. I took it down today because
you didn't let it hit the ground, did you?
No, of course not. I'm not gonna be disrespectful. I took it off of our house because we fly an American flag. I took it down today because I'm not, like, that flag doesn't mean what it meant even 5 or 10 years ago. It doesn't mean that anymore. It's now starting to mean something completely different, and I don't like what it's turning into. And it's not to say that I'm becoming anti-American in any sense of the word, because I'm not. You know, I love America. I love this country. I love the freedoms that we're afforded, or the freedoms that we used to be afforded anyways. But I cannot support this government institution that it has become. Again, this ruling class that now exists, that again, like I said, they don't govern over us like what is how it should be. It should be governing, not ruling. We are a ruled people now at this point, as far as I can tell. And this example of this thing getting overwhelming support to stifle speech is very much, and the broad way in which they're doing it too is also very fucking disrespectful to us as Americans. Because if you're going to say that we can't say certain things, at least have the balls to put in there, yes, these are the things that you exactly cannot say. Not, well, we're going to allow the working definition, which is very vague and covers a lot of things, and there's really no exact definition. It's a working definition. And also, a working definition implies change. It implies that it can be changed at any time. And that working definition becomes law, can be changed by this private entity at any time. And someone could be in violating the law. Oh, yesterday it wasn't illegal to say A, and now today it's illegal to say A because they changed it. They changed the law, or they changed the working definition. But how would you know that? It doesn't matter. Ignorance is no excuse for breaking the law. That's what they always say, right? So this is truly becoming one of those like weird 1984 fucking types of things. And this is the first fucking example of it. And one of the things that I have to say is that I have become very anti-authoritarianism, I guess. I think people should be allowed to say what they want to say, and that's it. I don't know. I'm not saying I agree with the reason people go out and protest, but I think they should be allowed to do it. And
on all fronts.
On all fronts. And I also think that the state has now become essentially the boot to step on this. And the police are a prime example of that, because the police are supposed to exist. They've lost their way. They were supposed to exist to protect our rights as citizens. Back in the day when protests would happen, the police would be there to protect people's right to protest. They would be protecting the protesters. Now they come in and they just fucking destroy them and beat the shit out of them and take them down and do whatever they got to do because they're instructed by their master of the state to say, hey, we don't like that this is happening here. We don't like what they're saying. Go in there and take care of business. When the police should be saying, no, they have a right to do this. We will protect it. That's what they're supposed to do. But instead, they've just become a corporate instrument for the state to essentially destroy any anti-state opinion that exists, or any opinion that exists that doesn't align with the current opinion of the state.
What do you think about, say, somebody like Bernie Sanders, who is of Jewish faith, saying what we have to say? What do you think? How do you think Israelis perceive what he's saying about, you know, what Israelis are doing to Palestinians, and people calling that out? That isn't anti-Semitism. Does that end up changing how people look at Bernie Sanders and say, who the fuck is this guy? Like he's not Jewish enough to make an opinion on, to criticize like the Israeli nation. Like who the fuck is he to say that? What do you guys say about that?
What did you say? Did you say anything specific?
No, I'm just saying, like, because I think he actually has similar sentiments to what we're saying, that there's no anything that is against or is perceived to be against Israel, like criticizing the nation of Israel itself, right? That if he, damn it, I lost my point. Let me dial it back. But he's basically, what I've heard him say in the past is that criticizing Israel does not equate to anti-Semitism. So how do you think that changes the perspective of people, of the people of Israel, to Bernie Sanders, who's, I guess you could say, somebody of their own criticizing the nation itself?
Yeah, okay, I get what you're saying. So it'd be a parallel example, just so I am clear on what you're saying, would be like if someone who's like maybe mixed, they're half white and half Hispanic, maybe if they say something to the, because I'm white and you're Hispanic, so we can talk shit about this, but let's say,
all right.
And nobody can fucking yell at us and say that we're racist, because we're the two racists we're talking about sitting here.
All right.
So let's just use that as the example, but let's say it's somebody who's half white, half Hispanic, and they're talking shit about white people, and the white people say, oh, well, you're not white enough to even have an opinion on this, but you're applying that to the Jew thing, right? So yeah, let's just say Bernie Sanders is agreeing with us and saying this shit, but then the people that are very pro-Israel are like, well, you're not Jewy enough. You're not a Jew enough to be able to say this. Again, that's just another, I think that's another, what is the word? A distraction from the point. It's moving the bar of entry. He's Jewish. There is no, you're not Jewish enough. You're not Catholic enough. You're not fucking Muslim enough. You either are or you aren't. That's a yes or a no. It's not a, yeah, I'm a little bit Jewish today, or I'm a little bit Catholic today. Like, no. You're either yes or you're no. That's it. So if you check that box and say, yeah, you're Jewish, then yeah, you get to have an opinion on this. And people that, again, they, like you said, it's moving the goalpost essentially and saying, oh, well, yes, when he agrees with us, oh yeah, Bernie Sanders says all these great things and we love his opinions and he says all these good things about us. But then when he says something we don't like, we say, well, you're not actually Jewish enough to be able to have an opinion on that, buddy. Even though they would say the opposite when he would say something positive, right?
Yeah, or that he's too far away from it. He doesn't understand what's going on. But I mean, if it's a valid opinion, like why can't he hold it?
Yeah, I agree. Well, again, everyone's opinion is valid. It's an opinion. Sure, it can be right. It can be right. It could be wrong. Whatever. But it's valid nonetheless. Whether it's right or whether it's wrong, it's still an opinion. Opinion's an opinion. So you should be able to have whatever opinions you fucking want. And yeah, that's where we, like I said, this is turning into like some sort of a weird authoritarianism. And I also dislike the fact that so much of our money that we pay into the government goes to shit that doesn't help us at all. And that's kind of, again, how we're being ruled instead of governed, is we're told, hey, you don't get to fucking do these things unless or you get to go to jail if you don't pay enough money to us. We'll put you in jail if you don't pay what you're supposed to pay. We'll lock you in a cage.
Or if you say the wrong thing.
Yeah, or now it's become, if you say the wrong thing, you'll lose all your shit and you'll be homeless. We'll lock you in a cage. We'll do whatever. And now this whole, one of the things at least that I've seen with these protests in particular is they're literally genuinely fighting back against the police. And they're at least, it's like that Beastie Boys song, you got to fight for your right to party, right? You got to fight for your right to protest, okay? And I'm in favor of fighting against the police in telling you that you can't fucking come out here and protest. The fuck I can't, bitch. Well, if you want to remove me from here, you're going to have to fight me to get me out of here. And that's one of the things that I have said in the past about protests being ineffective is it's because of the simple fact that they're not committed enough, or they're not willing to commit to meet the violence, because that's what's happening. The police are using the threat of violence to remove you, or violence to remove you from your right to protest, right? And the only way you're going to stop that or put an end to it is violence has to counter violence. You cannot just you can't be passive, because then they're just going to pick your ass up and throw you in the bus and throw you off to jail, right? So at some point, something needs to happen to remind the state that we have these rights, and you can only push us so far into trying to take them away. And it's unfortunate, but I think that's where it's headed. And, I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wonder what the repercussions are for the faculty to take the stance that they're pro-Palestine, because I think for some of them, they might find themselves unemployed, and maybe for the students, maybe some of them don't graduate. I know at the very least, the ones that were arrested probably walked away with the misdemeanor or some bullshit. And who the fuck knows, man? I'm kind of curious if all the students collectively have a public defender, or maybe they each get their own public defender because they probably can't afford a personal lawyer if they're paying for fucking going to UCLA or whatever. But I'd be curious if a joint lawsuit is filed to maybe go against the university police, or
yeah,
I don't know. I'm kind of curious what happens with everyone else after the fact.
Well, I'll tell you this from insider information that I know to be true, is that the district attorney for LA does not like prosecuting trespassing cases. They just don't do it. And that's pretty much what everybody was kind of charged with, was like a misdemeanor trespassing. And what's even harder is because this was not private property. This was because UCLA is a public institution, right? So it's a public institution that people have the right to go on because it's a public place. So the fact that they took all these people they loaded them in buses and took them to an undisclosed location is what they said. They would be taken to an undisclosed location where they would be cited and released. So you just removed all these people, gave them tickets that are just going to bog down the system because the DA is just going to have to say, well, we're not going to prosecute any of these. Or what if the DA does prosecute these because they were protesters and because of what they were protesting? Because I know from experience that, like I said, the district attorney at LA does not like prosecuting trespassing cases just in general, which is crazy. But if they're going to they're going to prosecute these, now we're getting into not only stifling freedom of speech, but saying, hey, here are the consequences of you utilizing your freedom of speech is, we didn't like that you did this, so we're going to lock you in a cage. We don't lock anyone else in a cage who does this, but we're going to lock you in a cage because of the reason why you did it, because you were being anti-Israel, and we're going to lock you in a cage for that. And that's fucking crazy to me. That is fucking crazy to me. It's selective. Again, it's rules for thee, but none for me. And this is what led this whole shit is what led to the French Revolution multiple fucking times. Let them eat cake. We are literally getting to, I don't know what the United States version of let them eat cake is going to be, but we're fucking getting there. I can see it.
Yeah, this shit's real interesting. And man, I don't really know if in grand scheme this was just a ploy from some other country to, and I said this on the previous episode, but my theory is that maybe this was instigated by some country to have Hamas invade Israel, and then things would escalate to Israel retaliating and then creating victims out of Palestine. And as a result of the fact that the U.S. is attached to Israel, that this would sow dissent across the United States. And whoever baited us into doing that, I mean, they fucking won, because now there is a clear line of division amongst people throughout the United States. And I mean, fucking, if that was actually the motive all along, fucking bravo to whoever orchestrated that, because that is a monster play for not a whole lot of things at stake. Maybe who the fuck knows how many people involved with Hamas actually died. But it's like saying, man, I don't know how to word this, but I'm going to say it was a worthy sacrifice for those people that gave up their lives to create this fucking dissent amongst humanity. Well, at least here regionally to the United States. But what a fucking monster, massive play to make this happen, essentially.
Yeah, I agree. Mission accomplished, if that's what the whole goal of this whole thing was, which again, this is one of the things that I've said in the past, is the only way you're going to defeat the United States of America, because of all of our freedoms and because of all that, the only way you're going to defeat us is to make us tear each other apart, is to divide us. And we literally have that. Like, it's literally the United States. It's united we stand, divided we fall, personified in a country. And I don't know if it's going to be this issue in particular, or if it's a combination of all these issues and everything with this election coming up. But I think we are more divided now than we've ever been, at least in our lifetimes, for sure. And to me, that's a very, I don't want to say scary, but it's a daunting prospect that we're so divided, and going into an election which is basically being repeated from 4 fucking years ago. I really do feel like we live in a goddamn simulation. like how is this fucking happening again, where we're getting to having protests again right before a fucking election of the same 2 assholes who were going against each other 4 years ago when we were also having massive unrest and riots and protests going on. This is fucking mind-boggling to me how this is happening. But it is very daunting to see that this is what is coming. And I don't want to, I also, the TikTok thing also is another example of that, because of this censorship, right? Yeah, I get it. The Chinese government owns it, but who gives a fuck? You don't have to use TikTok. You could choose something else to use, but we should at least have the choice to use it. You shouldn't tell me I can't have this thing, because you're literally being no better than the Chinese government, because they do the same thing. Oh, you can't have this, so you're not allowed. Well, you're doing the same shit they are. And not that I'm a TikTok shill or anything, but I'm a freedom shill.
For the right price.
Yeah, well, for the right price. That's true. And the TikTok thing also has me concerned a little bit, because if you look at revolutions, all like the color revolutions, for example, that happened in the Middle East in the early 2010s and late 2000s, early 2010s, right? You had all these, they called them the color revolutions. It was like the red, the blue, whatever the fuck the things were. One of the things that facilitated that was the use of social media. And that's how people were able to communicate. And now eventually the governments shut it down, but they just turn off your internet. But if you limit the amount of options we have for communication, it's very easy to control them. And TikTok's not able to be told by the US government what to do, because ultimately they answer to the Chinese government, basically. So if there's problems happening here and people are using TikTok to communicate, the US government can't say, hey, TikTok, anything that comes up or any people in this area that are using your thing, shut it off. And there have been times in the past when these things have happened where Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, they were told by the government, hey, we need you to shut off messaging in certain areas because of this. This is what the rioters or the unrest, the protesters are using to communicate, right? And they've done this in many countries, and they usually comply. The social media groups usually comply. In the Middle East, Twitter told them to fuck off. that we weren't going to do that because this was something that benefited the U.S. government. So again, it's very telling that they're trying to ban a social media app that you can communicate with that they have no control over when we're heading into this potential unrest period. Because if this unrest turns into something real that becomes an actual threat to the government, I guarantee you they'll immediately shut this shit down. They'll shut down all internet communications. They'll shut down all the apps. They'll shut down everything. You won't be able to fucking talk to nobody. And that's generally how you quell an insurrection in the modern times. You just stifle the means of communications because apparently us as humans fucking forgot how to write letters and fucking put notes and fucking talk to people in person. So we have to do it through an app. So if you can't organize that way, then it's a lot harder to get people out of their fucking houses to come out and fucking protest against the government, right? So I don't know. It's just very, and again, this is my opinion. I'm not, stating any facts of anything, that I know this is going to happen. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's my opinion, based on what's happened in the past. It looks like that's where we're headed, and it's coming to a head very quickly. Because again, this election is happening in fucking October or November. So, are you holding up the conch because you have to talk?
No, I was just holding it up. Yeah.
Right. But anyways, so yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see where it goes. But man, it's fucking insane to think that this is where we're heading.
Yeah, for the record, I don't actually hold an opinion on to say I'm pro-Palestine or pro-Israel. I keep reiterating that, but this is more just for the sake of discussion, man, just to fucking have it and talk about it. And I really don't know how it's going to come across because I do think there is a bit of a problem with us truncating pieces of the audio and presenting it to people on social media that they'll only hear 60 seconds. And that will influence somebody else's opinion to say, look, these guys are pro-Palestine because they said they're not down with Netanyahu's rhetoric or whatever. And that's not really what we're saying. We're not even in favor of the Palestinians either, because we don't hold an opinion on either one.
Yeah, I agree with that. And honestly, maybe we should make this the clip for this episode because we say so often we are not picking a side in any of this. We are just discussing opinions and facts of things that happened and where we potentially think they're going to go. And we're not picking a side on any of this shit. And I'm sure that last post that we did, the pro-Palestinian side was very probably the majority of the people who like that post. But if they don't go listen to the episode, that's on them. We're just giving you a preview of what's in the episode. It's up to you to go listen to the whole thing and to get the context of what we're saying. So you can't say, oh, you're a fucking anti-Semite or you're an anti-Palestinian. You can't say any of that because if you listen to the episode, you'd know that we didn't pick any side and we're not picking a side. We're not advocating for either side in any of this shit. Mm-hmm. People would know that if they listen. So if they don't listen, it's on them as far as I'm concerned. But you're right. Truncating, and we're doing the news media thing to ourselves where, oh, you take one clip and you take it out of context and then you fucking promote it. We're basically doing that to ourselves. But again, we're relying on people that are hopefully smart enough to go listen to the whole episode. Because if it's about something that they might be interested in, which is this topic, which a lot of people are interested in this topic, to say the least, at least you might want to go listen to the episode to hear what it's about. Because again, you can't just talk shit to me and say I'm a fucking Jew hater just because you heard a 60-second clip of me saying something that I didn't agree with something Netanyahu was doing. You can't say that. Because if you would go listen to the actual episode it was in, you'd hear the full context of the statement. And that's another problem I think we have. People don't want to go listen to the whole thing. They just want to take these little buzzwords that you say and these little out of context statements and be like, oh, I just made an entire opinion of you and your whole political spectrum that you are on off of a 60-second clip that I heard on the internet. And unfortunately, that's how the majority, I think, of people are these days. I think that's...
Yeah, it's enough. It's enough for somebody to just hold up a video and say, this is enough for me without actually doing the research.
Oh yeah, they're like, oh, we saw Game Rage post this video of Netanyahu and them talking about him. They're anti-Semitic. They're Nazis. That's gonna be the next thing. Is the Game Rage magazine guys are Nazis. That's what they're gonna say, off of just one social media clip. And whatever, that's cool. Hey, controversy creates cash, right? I guess we are definitely not Nazis, but hey, whatever. If it brings more people to listen to our shit, say whatever the fuck you want. Again, exercise free speech by saying whatever the fuck you want about us. And please get people to come watch our fucking shit and listen to our fucking show, our podcasts. So, anyways, I think that's pretty much all I had to say for this episode. What about you?
Yeah, exercise your free speech by entertaining discourse with us, whatever your opinion is. If you're pro-Palestine or you're pro-Israel, regardless of what you believe, if you want to hate on Game Rage and how shitty we are, more power to you. You have every right to do so, and I ain't gonna fight you on it. But I will fight anybody that says that you cannot say a certain thing, and I'm just not down with that. You have the right to say whatever the fuck you want, because this is America.
That's true. I agree. I will say that anyone has the right to say whatever it is that they want, with the exception of one thing. Anyone that's pro-alien can fuck straight off. Okay.
Pro-alien.
To wrap this back around to the beginning of the episode, anyone who is pro-alien is anti-human. You know what that is? That's that fucking thing from Austin Powers when he's like, I am tolerant of every culture and everything except the Dutch. I hate the fucking Dutch. Like that's like what that is. It's fucking great. It's a great comedic concept of hypocrisy.
If you're not down with the sapien cause, then what are you doing? I don't.
If you ain't down with sapiens, we got 2 words for you. I don't know what they are yet, but we got 2 words. We're thinking about it. I don't want to just steal the 2 words we should say, but
the New Age Outlaws, the tried and true 2-word phrase.
Yeah, that we all used to say in 3rd grade. We used to crotch shop everybody.
Yeah, I'm curious to find out how this episode's going to do, because I don't know how it's going to come out. I don't know how it's going to turn out. I don't know what the reception will be, but oh man, well, I mean, I'm sure going to have a good time watching to see how this thing does.
Yeah, I'll agree with that 100%. I have no idea how this episode's going to do or how it's going to be received, but I do know one thing for sure, and that's that this episode is going to be very fucking fun to watch and see how it plays out nonetheless. So anyways, I don't know. I guess that's it, right? Good.
No,
right.
Nothing else.
Nothing else. So, real quick, just remember, if you want to support us here at Game Rage Magazine, leave us a fucking 5-star review on something. Spotify, iTunes, I don't give a shit. Leave it on something. Just click the 5 stars. You don't even got to write a review. Just click the 5-star part, because I do think that's helping. At least get us put up in the algorithm higher. And also, what really helps is we're looking for a new high score, okay, for monthly downloads. So if you could please assist us with that, and just going to GameRageMagazine.com or wherever you enjoy podcasts and listening to all the other podcasts we have. And if you don't know the podcast that we have, you can just go to GameRageMagazine.com on the internet and you can fucking type. If you type in Game Rage Mag, it gets you. We're like the #1 search thing that comes up when you put that. So just fucking go there. And you can see all the different things, and you can find them on all the different sites of whatever your listening app of choice is. And you can go listen to there. Anyways, did you have something to say?
Yeah, just the last thing. Only thing I'd say to summarize this episode for the 13th billionth time is that I may not agree with what you say, but damn it, will I defend the right for you to say it.
Yeah, that's pretty fitting. Good way to end it. All right, well, thank you guys for listening, and we will fucking catch you on the next one if we don't get canceled, which I'm sure I'm pretty sure the letter's already been sent in the mail. So, yeah. Anyways, have a good one. That was the latest episode of the Central Unintelligence Podcast. Don't forget, subscribe and like on Instagram and TikTok at Game Rage Magazine. We're also on Twitter/X at Game Rage Mag. Also, our website, www.GameRageMagazine.com.